Welcome back to Project Joyful, the podcast for health-centered leaders. At Project Joyful, we believe high performance doesn't mean self-sacrifice. And leadership begins with wholeness. This is the third episode in our series, The Hidden Costs of High Performance. And today, we're pulling back the curtain on a belief so common, it often goes unquestioned. This idea that you can compartmentalise your life. That what happens at home stays at home, that stress, sadness, or friction can be boxed up and left at the door. But here's the truth. Your nervous system doesn't clock in and out. It carries everything. And when you try to separate the personal from the professional, what you're actually doing is scattering your energy. And your leadership feels it. So if you've been wondering why you're snapping more often, why your team feels out of sync, or why your confidence isn't landing like it used to, then this episode will help you name what's really going on beneath the surface. And more importantly, I'm going to show you how to shift it. So let's unravel this illusion of compartmentalisation together, shall we? You're the one they turn to, the calm one, the capable one, the one with the answers. And yet, beneath it all, you know there's more available for you. More energy, more clarity, more unshakable presence. Welcome to Project Joyful, the podcast for health-centered leaders. I'm Tracy Tutty. Here, we speak to the part of you that knows leadership isn't about doing more. It's about becoming more fully who you are. So let's begin, shall we? So you tell yourself it doesn't matter. That what happens at home stays at home. That what happens in your head stays locked safely behind your ribcage. But here's the truth that high-performing women don't want to admit. You can't lead clean when you're leaking energy. And energy doesn't compartmentalise. It's subtle, isn't it? The way your edge softens, not from wisdom, but from wear. Not all at once, but gradually, silently. You don't notice the cost until the tension becomes your baseline, until irritability becomes your tone, until you realize that you're turning into someone you don't really like. That used to be me. Until presence becomes effort. Let me tell you about a client of mine. In the interest of privacy, we'll call her Julia. Now, Julia was the kind of leader everyone admired. Her reports were clean, her team loyal, her strategy sharp. On the surface, she was crushing it. But when we started working together, she shared something that really made me stop and pause. She said, I used to feel things. Now I just name them and move on, like I'm logging symptoms in a spreadsheet, not living them. Julia had mastered the art of compartmentalising. Her teenage son was going through a tough time, mood swings, silence, pushing her away, and she was handling it, or so she thought. She never brought it up at work, but her team started walking on eggshells around her. Performance wobbled. People stopped coming to her with problems. And when we traced it back, it actually wasn't the workload. It was the emotional residue. What hadn't been processed at home was whispering through every single meeting. Not loud, just enough to shift the room. That's how it works. The leak is so subtle, but the impact, it reverberates across the organisation and back into your home life. And this is not just anecdotal. Research from Harvard Business Review has shown that leaders who fail to process emotional stress outside of work are more likely to unconsciously transmit tension to their teams. This emotional contagion impacts collaboration, morale, even productivity. So, for example, you skip the team check-in, not because you don't care, but because your mind is still looping on that tense conversation from this morning. Maybe it was your partner's tone, the way it hit an old bruise you thought had healed. Your team notices your distracted presence, even if they can't name it. Or maybe you nail the presentation in the board meeting that day, but you're short with your EA. She didn't do anything wrong, but your daughter slammed her door at 7:30 this morning and you haven't quite shaken it off. Or maybe you're making decisions like a boss on paper,
But inside, your nervous system is on a slow simmer. You've started waking at 2 a.m. with your jaw clenched. You tell yourself it's the workload, but actually, it's the emotional backlog. It's the unspoken, the unfelt, the unprocessed. And the sneaky thing is that these aren't dramatic moments. That's what makes them so dangerous, because they're normalized. Just a little tension, just a little mood, just a little fog. That's subtle, isn't it? The way your edge softens, not from wisdom, but from wear and tear. You don't notice the cost until that tension becomes your baseline, until irritability becomes your tone, until presence becomes effort. But they accumulate, and they cost you more than you realize. You see, here's the thing. There's actually no way to separate what you feel from how you lead. Your nervous system doesn't draw clean lines between boardrooms and breakfast tables. It's all one system, one signal, one truth. So even when your words are on message, your energy's out of sync. Your team can feel the static. Your kids can feel the absence. And your body, it's running the emotional relay race that no one actually trained you for. This is the hidden cost of high performance. Not the big burnouts, but the micro misalignments that slowly siphon your energy, your sharpness, your patience, your joy. And high performers, we feel those losses, not because we're weak, but because we're deeply attuned. Imagine your leadership as a glass of water. Every conversation, every decision, every moment of presence is a pour from that glass. You think the stress from your personal life is in a separate container, but the truth is it's like a tiny pinprick in the bottom of the glass. Drip, drip, drip. You don't notice it at first, but by 3 p.m., you're dry. And what do? Well, as overachievers, we try to fix it ourselves, of course. We compensate, we overfunction, we push harder, we chase external fixes, another strategy, another wellness hack, another holiday, hoping that it's going to refill that tank. But what if the solution wasn't to pour more water into the glass? What if it was to seal the leak at the bottom, the part that no one sees, but that you feel every single day? See, here's the thing. Your energy is your leadership. You can't white-knuckle your way to presence. Your nervous system has to believe it's safe to slow down. In my experience, this is where neuroidentity coaching changes everything. This is what changed it for me. Because we don't just talk about work-life balance, which, let's be honest, it's a myth. We bring work home and we bring our home to work. We work at the root, on the subconscious patterns that keep you emotionally fragmented. We help you build a nervous system that feels safe and coherence so that your presence becomes whole again. Not perfectly polished, but integrated, resourced, radiant. And that's when your leadership stops costing you and it starts to replenish you. You see, I don't just come from the world of coaching. I've led finance teams through chaos, dysfunction, and turnarounds. I've navigated tough conversations in the boardroom and the quiet unraveling that happens when life presses from all sides. I know the cost of splitting yourself to survive. I also know the power of wholeness. As a certified neuroidentity evolution coach, a medical herbalist, and a chartered accountant, my work integrates the strategic with the somatic. In leadership, that means we don't just shift the mindset, we work with the body. We notice how your system holds stress, how your breath changes in tension, how your posture shifts when you're bracing. The somatic is the felt intelligence that reveals what your conscious mind has learned to ignore. The energetic with the executive. Because leadership isn't just about what you do. It's about the energy you do it with. Your presence speaks before your strategy ever will. We don't bypass the hard stuff. We process it thoroughly, somatically, and without judgment. So you can lead clean, clear, and deeply connected. So if you're tired of feeling like your life is split into pieces, if you suspect that the invisible stress is dulling your brilliance, So if you're tired of feeling like your life is split into pieces, if you suspect that the invisible stress is dulling your brilliance, if you're ready to stop performing and start leading from the center of who you really are, then let's talk. There's a link in the show notes where you can book some time to chat with me, because your best leadership doesn't come from compartmentalising. It comes from coherence. And coherence, well, that's your natural state when your system finally feels safe to stop pretending. Sending you lots of love. Bye for now.
Hey, thanks for listening to today's podcast. Can I ask you a favour? If our conversation spoke to you today, could you please take a moment to leave a 5-star review? Your review will help people discover this podcast, and together we can create a world where there's even more love and more laughter. And if you want to hear more from the Project Joyful podcast, just click the subscribe button. Bye for now.